Hello, everyone. My name is Deja, and I am a fellow with Financial Beginnings Oregon. And this is the third episode of our podcast featuring women of color and talking about women of color in finance. Today, our special guest is Alissa. Alissa, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Deja and Abria, for letting me be in your podcast today. I'm Alissa, like Deja said. I'm also a fellow with Financial Beginnings. I'm currently a senior at Pacific Lutheran University out in Tacoma, Washington, double majoring in business and sociology, but I am born and raised in Portland, Oregon.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for joining us today. Great introduction, by the way. And
Thank you.
as we all probably know by now, my name is Abria Akil, also a fellow. We're all fellows here, so we're really glad that you could be here and join us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for
Of,
having me.
of course. So let's jump right in. We'll start with our first question. So have you ever thought about planning for retirement? Why or why not?
Retirement, yes. Honestly, I didn't think of planning for retirement probably until I got into college and realized how much financial stuff I have to learn and pay for. And so I haven't initially started my retirement fund, but I want to after my first job and slowly getting into building a 401k, looking at other investments such as stocks. I currently got into stocks. Thank you, Deja, for helping me out. But that's what I've been doing currently right now to get ready for retirement whenever that comes.
Cool. What type of stocks are you in right now?
I'm currently using Robinhood right now,
Mm-hmm.
using just getting like stocks that I'm interested in, whether that's like Apple or Microsoft, the S&P 500, those kind of things. I already signed a contract for a job after I graduate, so I'm just waiting to see what my benefits are within the job. And then from there, I want to see what kind of retirement plans or any type of savings plan that I can apply for.
That's really great, Alyssa. We've been having conversations like that recently on the podcast as well. And a lot of us are like, yeah, we're thinking about it, but the fact that you already have that emotion, that's like really great.
Yeah, no, I it took a lot of learning and no one really thinks about it because you don't think that you need to think about retirement until you're like 40 or 50 years old. But in order to have that retirement money, you need to start early on to have a lot more. So it took a lot of thinking and learning of what I needed to do.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. And also, congratulations. That's exciting that you have something lined up for after graduation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Um, let's go on to the next question. Um, let's see. How do you think being a woman of color has set you up for financial success?
Um, this is a really good question. For sure, off the bat, my identity. I am a woman of color, specifically Asian American, and I think in the Asian culture, we're always about money, right? You might think of the Asians who are super stingy and don't want to pay for anything. Then there's the super rich Asians that media portrays Asians to be, and I think it didn't prepare me at all, honestly, other than just like, you need to save money. No one really told me how to save money or what I needed to do, other than you need to have a lot of money. I think it was more of the idea of job security or just being secure in your money. I think having my parents always coming from another country, immigrated from America, and having to start from the bottom and figure out what that was for them and to get a home, to get a credit, that kind of thing. I think the only mentality that they knew was to save your money and to get a lot of money so you don't have to live a paycheck to paycheck for life. And so that was the only thing I think that it has taught me, but it's also made an impact of how I go about it, right? With my identity, knowing that no one really knows about financial literacy, as someone who's a woman of color and in general just woman in finance, like you don't really talk about those things. You don't see representation. And so you knowing that, it pushed me to want to learn more, to want to find out what are some ways that I can make more money so I don't have to work hard all my life. Because a lot of families who immigrated think about the American dream and think we're integrated into this mindset of saying like, oh, we work hard, we're going to get what we want, right? But our parents work hard every single day, but we don't see any economic change going on. Like we're still in the same realm of income level, but there's no change in that. And so what can I do and what can I learn to make that social mobility so that I don't have to be in the same position or making the same amount of money as my parents so that I have to be scavenging paycheck to paycheck, right? Like I remember Abria saying like she wants generational wealth. And so that is something I aspire to have, knowing that not a lot of women of color have education in financial literacy.
Yeah, retweet. That is my goal as well. Yeah, I mean, I see that with my parents, like they've definitely made it their goal to provide for my brothers and I, and in a way that their parents weren't able to do for them. But still, for me, I don't know, ever since I started learning more about finances and more about financial stability and financial independence, it has been my goal to kind of build that generational wealth,
Right.
and set myself up for financial independence in the future, as well as my kids, and make it a habit of not only providing that stability for them, but teaching them how they can, better provide for themselves, and what it takes to be financially literate, and what it takes to kind of be smart about your money and about how you use it.
Yeah.
I think what both you guys said was like very summed up beautifully. And just it reminds me of like that intersectionality we all kind of face as women of color, being black, being Asian, being whatever we are, also being women. It's like that layer of complexity and difficulty in the finance industry. But I like that our generation, especially of women, and even the generation before, like we're taking control and we're taking charge, and we're facing the odds, but not looking at it so much as odds anymore, but looking at it like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I can do this. I can actually, build that wealth from ground zero and then work my way up. I can build my own credit. I can get my own house. I can get my own car without not necessarily having a man, but having that, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not having to lean on somebody all the time. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's just the culture we're in now. Like we have our own independence, and I feel like along with that independence came, that mentality of like, okay, I can do this, without feeling like all the odds are against me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that it's important that we're having those conversations with each other and with other people, just because I know for me, on the start of my financial journey, which started fairly recently, I did a lot of research, looked for a lot of materials just to educate myself. But the
Yeah.
majority of those materials are created and produced by men. So it's just, I think it's really important that once we get that education and get that knowledge, we talk about it amongst ourselves and spread it to others who maybe are not at the forefront of financial literacy.
Yeah.
Agree. And I think that's how we keep pursuing that level of financial success among women of color, by circling that information around to other groups and other people as much as possible.
Yeah. And we're even doing it through financial beginnings as well. Like, that's the reason why we chose to be a fellow. Well, one of the reasons why we chose to be a fellow is so that we can spread that knowledge and that education for people who have like experiences like us.
Exactly. Wow, good conversations. I love it. Alissa, what has been one of your biggest financial accomplishments and one of your biggest financial mistakes?
Oh, that's really hard because I don't think I've had to do a really, really big purchase. But I think finding ways for me to learn how to budget and to mitigate my finance to go to college. I think that has been soon to be an accomplishment because I'm almost graduating. Because I didn't, when you're in high school or when you're in middle school, you don't really think about your finance in the long term. You kind of just think about, do I have money for lunch tomorrow, kind of deal. You don't really think about like, okay, is this going to pay for tuition? Is this going to pay for groceries? Do I have to pay for rent? Those kind of things. And I think this has been by far the biggest financial accomplishment soon to be right now, because I can tell from the contract that I already signed with my future job and with graduating with an undergraduate degree, I'm already having a higher income right off the bat after I graduate compared to my parents. And I think that already, other than graduating in general, is an accomplishment. I think getting a job right off the bat and having a higher income than your parents has always been a goal and an accomplishment for me. And so I think that one is my biggest accomplishment soon to be. My biggest mistake, that's really hard. I'm trying to think. I think my biggest mistake was probably making impulsive decisions with my shopping. And I think a lot of people have that too. So I personally think it's okay to have those moments, but at the same time, could I have done better with the decision making of my purchases? Yes. But was it honestly one of my biggest? I think if you added up all my impulsive decision of shopping, then I think that would probably be my biggest mistake.
Same.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Completely.
Every day I go look online and somehow a new pair of shoes ends up on my doorstep. So I need to stop.
No, it really, yes, no. And the fact that we have the easy shipping, the easy access, and the variety of choices that we get, it's just so accessible. And, retail therapy does help. I don't know about you, but sometimes I always look forward to having a package, even though I know I don't have a package.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
That's funny.
I would agree with that, Alissa, just because like your whole statement, honestly, because we are in college and we are at that age where we're not making like huge purchases yet. Like we're not buying
Yeah.
homes. Maybe some of us are. I'm not gonna say not all,
Right.
but speaking for us, like us three right here, we haven't bought like a big home or anything like that. So I think, it sounds really relatable when you say like, working off college and like, you're already set up with that. That's very relatable. I can definitely agree there. And also with the shopping, yes. Like I had to, cut my own self off for my own money because it was getting ridiculous. And you're right,
Yeah.
like retail therapy, especially like with all the college pressure and just pressure in general in life right now, like, we kind of need that outlet. So I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about our next question, which is who taught you about finances, or when did you first start learning about finances?
Um, I don't think I like specifically had a class about finance. I don't think I've ever done that until probably financial beginnings when we learned how to teach the class. Because it was never taught to me. It's not embedded in our school systems. No one really told us. Like, I think the only thing that I was taught when it came to finances when we were in like elementary school, still learning how to add and subtract, and we had the coins, the money, and we had to say like, oh, this is 25 cents. And, if you add a 5 cents, like, what would that be? I think that was kind of the only thing that I really was taught when it came to money. Not until I had my first like real job in high school. I worked at Lloyd Center Mall, and that was the first time I had a big check. Like, that was the biggest money I was ever getting. And that's when I learned, like, okay, I'm going to put like half of my paycheck into my savings account. And that was just me knowing that I needed to save, but attempted to try to see if that was going to work or not. Of course, that didn't work out because I would eventually take out my money out of my savings and put it into my checking, so I can still spend it. But I think still having that exploring, and just trying it out got me to be like, okay, this is how I saved and this is how my finances are.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I do not recall ever having like
Mm-hmm.
a class. It was never taught, for me at least, it was never taught in school. And no one really, none of my friends or any of the adults that I was surrounded with either really talked about finances. And it didn't even start coming up until I was applying to college. And even then,
Mm-hmm.
nobody really emphasized just how expensive college can be,
Yeah.
and thinking about student loans and is your job after college going to be able to make up for those loans.
Mm-hmm.
um, it really just got to be a lot, and so I had to take it upon myself to learn. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's really important for people to start thinking about finances at a young age so that when they do come up on some money, they do get that job, they know, okay, I should put some of my money in a savings account. Okay, I can spend X amount of dollars from my paycheck. Okay, when
Yeah.
I hit this age, I should start putting a few dollars into my retirement account every week or every month, you know?
Right. Yeah, and no one ever tells us those things. And it's just crazy to think about because also at the same time, finances is kind of a secret. Like, no one goes out their way and tells each other like, this is how much I got on my paycheck. And I think that's also a reason why we don't really talk about it too, is just because it's usually known for something to be a secret. But that doesn't defeat the purpose of teaching us still, the how to part. It's just like the thing that we just don't talk about sometimes, though.
Yeah, it's definitely like a taboo topic. And we're taught, oh, you shouldn't really ask how much someone makes, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what they're doing with their money. But we should be talking about that because there's so many people out there who reach that age of 50,
Yeah.
60. They're ready to retire and they don't have the money to do it because no one told them that if they started 10 years earlier, they would have thousands of extra dollars to do that.
Yeah.
And just to piggyback on what you guys said, it's interesting to me how money has become like this secret or like this taboo topic. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like one of the most important things, like as young people, we should learn. And like, I think that's one of my favorite questions we actually came up with, Deja, because it like shows us like where we actually got our knowledge from and how much of it we actually obtained, which is like little to none. Well, at least for me personally, because I remember like like for a few examples, like my dad saying, "Oh, work on your credit," as like literally like the like 9 years old, and I'm looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
9 years old. I don't know what you're talking about, but now it makes so much sense. But it was never
Mm-hmm.
like, it wasn't elaborated. And then like for another instance, in church, they say like give like some money, but never really explain to us like where that money is going, how that
Mm-hmm.
money actually affects us or doesn't affect us. And like, we come to church a lot of times to like find clarity on things, but like things like money are so like hush hush.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's been, ingrained in our households too. Like my
Mm-hmm.
mother couldn't really give me what she didn't have, so I can't blame her for that because,
Right.
I'm pretty sure she needed help in a lot of different places that she's just now getting there. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if it was more talked about among men, among women together and like building together, like generational, like back when and even now, I feel like a lot more women of color could be further along. Even though we've made strides, like it could be a lot better in a sense if that, you know, resource in that education was passed along. But that's just my thought.
Yeah. No. And it's perfectly like valid and it's so true and so relatable because we just don't know, like at a young
Hmm.
age.
Exactly. Just we don't know what we don't know, and our parents don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do feel like this is a good place to stop. I do want to say again, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us. Your questions, I mean, your answers were so thoughtful and very elaborate, and I really appreciate that because you got my brain thinking a lot about things that we already asked on the show, but definitely from a different perspective, of course.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for this whole entire podcast because we need this to exist. Like,
Exactly. That's what we wanted to do it for. The women of color that, that our voices aren't just, we have a voice somewhere.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the third episode of our podcast. And we will see you for our next episode.